Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am Kris. I apologize for the sound of my voice. It was Tuesday I started coming down with like a chest thing, just a dry cough, and now it's just a blah. I'm getting over it. I'm on the better end of it, but I just feel like ugh. So it's Friday. I'm hoping the weekend will help. But anyways, this is my nose itches. That's not it. This is Seerah part 62. The Treaty of Hudaybiyyah. Somebody remembered or went back and listened to a video to try to make sure he got it right. If I got it right, Hudaybiyyah. Nailed it. I'm good. I'm going to retire because I'm knocking these out of the park. Not the videos, just the names occasionally. But anyways, this video is sponsored by Yasin Muhammad. Now, I had started this video a little bit before, so I clicked on it. Then I thought I'd already done it, and I stopped, and I panicked. But apparently I didn't, so. And if you can scroll down here and click that thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, that's awesome, and it helps me out tremendously. And then you can also sponsor a video. Click on the thanks button, donate to the channel, request a video. Sis boom ba. Here we are. All right, this is going to be broken down into 4 parts again, about 18-ish minutes. So let's get into it. And if I disappear like this, it's probably because I'm blowing my nose. People ask, why you stop watching? You just disappear. Because I don't want to do that on screen.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. So we now move on to one of the most significant, one of the most interesting lessons in the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this incident marks a turning point for Islam. It is the precursor to the conquest of Mecca. And in fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls this incident a clear victory. Inna fatahna laka fatham mubina. We have given you a clear victory. Many Muslims, they consider Surah Al-Fatah to be for the conquest of Mecca, but this is not true. Surah Al-Fatah came down at the Treaty of Hudaybiyyah. And so the fatah that Allah refers to, Inna fatahna laka fatham mubina. We have given you a clear victory. This is a reference to the incident of Hudaybiyyah, which is what we are going to talk about inshallah today and for the next few series or lessons. And the Treaty of Hudaybiyyah, or the incident of Hudaybiyyah, this is especially relevant to Muslims living in the West. No doubt the whole seerah is important, but especially the incident of Hudaybiyyah, there is a marked significance for us living here in the West, and we're going to come to this when the time is appropriate. But in a nutshell, basically, the Treaty of Hudaybiyyah demonstrates that at times political alliances or treaties or agreements that we have with others, it forces us to allow other states to do injustice, other empires to get away with unjust policies, and all that we can do is to turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help. We can't do much beyond this. The Treaty of Hudaybiyyah shows us that sometimes for the Muslim community to simply make dua to Allah against the oppressor, this is all that we can do. And sometimes we go beyond this, and of course when we do when do we make dua and don't do anything, and when do you go beyond this? This is something the scholars of each era and each land and each community will decide. But as we will see in the Treaty of Hudaybiyyah, clearly injustice happened. Clearly the Quraysh did dhulm upon the Muslims, and the Prophet ﷺ, because of an agreement he had, he could not defend those particular Muslims, and he had to sacrifice a few for the benefit of the larger or the more. And of course Allah took care of both the few and the more. By the way, the mic seems bad. Is there something you hear? Do you hear something? Yes. I think tone it down a little bit. And by the way, just FYI, so the first lectures of Seerah I ever gave, more than 15 years ago, I forgot, it's been a long time. The first lectures of Seerah I ever gave dealt with 2 stories. And those are the first 2 stories I ever gave a public lecture about the Seerah, is the slander of Aisha and the story of Hudaybiyyah. Because both of them are very relevant and very pertinent to society. We already talked about the slander of Aisha and how slandering is something that leads to so much evil. And also one of the earliest lectures of Seerah I gave is the incident of the Treaty of Hudaybiyyah. Now, the first issue.
I just want to make sure I'm correct. Aisha was the wife, correct? The Prophet's wife? There's a lot of names, and after a while, they just start mixing together.
What do we call this incident? Because some of the books reference it as the Treaty of Hudaybiyyah, and some references as the expedition or the Ghazwa of Hudaybiyyah. In Arabic, Sulh al-Hudaybiyyah or Ghazwat al-Hudaybiyyah. And both of them have their, if you like, pros and cons. Most of the later writers, they reference it as the Treaty of Hudaybiyyah or the Peace Treaty of Hudaybiyyah, Sulh al-Hudaybiyyah. However, the Sahaba, most of them referenced it as Ghazwat al-Hudaybiyyah. And this is interesting. Why is it interesting that they called it Ghazwat al-Hudaybiyyah? Why is it interesting? Why is it a little bit abnormal, if you like? A little bit. There was no Ghazwa. There was no Ghazwa. What is a Ghazwa? Generally speaking, a Ghazwa means when the Prophet fought. Remember we said the difference between Sariyah and Ghazwa, right? And there was no actual battle that took place. And yet, most of the Sahaba called this Ghazwatul Hudaybiyyah. And we find this in the hadith, for example, of Salamat ibn al-Aqwa', the famous hadith we did many months ago, in which he said that I participated in 7 Ghazawat with the Prophet ﷺ. And he began to list them until he finally said, number 5, Ghazwatul Hudaybiyyah. So he called it Ghazwatul Hudaybiyyah, even though there was no actual battle that took place. And other Sahaba also called it Ghazwatul Hudaybiyyah. So why would they call it a Ghazwa?
So, I'm going to butcher this. What Ghazwa? Did I understand that? That means that the Prophet was involved in that battle? Or am I just completely not understanding what he just said? Which is very possible. But I'm going to stick with that. You tell me. Oh, hold on. Sorry. BRB, as the kids say. Okay, sorry about that. It was a burglary at the house, and so I ran down. You know, it was like 900 people, so I defeated them all with karate chops and a half-eaten watermelon. So, or it was perfect time for me to put my meatloaf in the oven. It was one or the other. I don't remember exactly. There's a lot of, you know, I'm cognitive decline, so I don't remember. But back to the video.
Well, because the fighting didn't actually take place, but the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba came a hair's width close to actually fighting. And they were prepared to fight. And they took the covenant to fight. So it is as if they might as well have actually fought. So they had the determination, they had the resolve to fight. So they called it Ghazwa. Also, it can be called a Ghazwa because this expedition or this incident of Hudaybiyyah is so significant politically that it really references more than just the incident of Hudaybiyyah. So some scholars say it actually makes more sense to call it the Ghazwa, because Ghazwa means there was a conquest, and Allah has called it a conquest. Inna fatahna laka fatham mubina. What was the cause of this Ghazwa? What was the reason why the Prophet left Medina?
Okay, so I think I was wrong then. He's licking my knee. Sorry.
Sometime during the 6th year of the Hijrah, we don't know exactly when, the Prophet ﷺ saw a dream in which he saw himself doing tawaf around the Kaaba and being in ihram, which means he's in umrah, and shaving his hair, which means he's finished the umrah. So he saw himself doing all of these rites of umrah. And he interpreted this, because as we know the dreams of the prophets are all true, he interpreted this that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is commanding him to go to Mecca and do Umrah. And this dream, it is not mentioned explicitly that the Prophet saw it, but what is mentioned is that when Hudaybiyyah is going on and after Hudaybiyyah, references are existing to the dream. For example, the Quran itself references. The Quran itself references, لَقَدْ صَدَقَ اللَّهُ رَسُولَهُ الرُّؤْيَا بِالْحَقِّ. Verily the dream that you saw, Allah will cause it to be true. لَتَدْخُلَنَّ الْمَسْجِدَ الْحَرَامَ. You will of a surety in the future. So Allah says, you saw a dream, it's going to be true, but it will happen in the future. آمنين محلقين رؤوسكم. You will be safe and secure, and you will have had your hairs shaved off. And also in the famous hadith of Bukhari, as we will come to, that Umar ibn al-Khattab came up to the Prophet and said, Ya Rasulullah, did you not tell us that we would be doing tawaf and shaving our hair? So where would he get this information from? Allah told him through the dream, and the Prophet said, I told you, but did I say it was going to be this year? No, it could be next year. So clearly then there are references to the Prophet having seen a dream. And so the Prophet announced his intentions to the Sahaba and to the surrounding Muslim tribes. By now it's the 6th year of the Hijrah, so Badr has taken place, Uhud has taken place, Khandaq has taken place. The Islamic Republic, or the Islamic, if you like, political area has become relatively large, so the surrounding areas are also Muslim. So the Prophet ﷺ announces his intention that he will embark on a Umrah to Mecca, so everybody who is able to join should join. And all of the historians, all of the Seerah experts agree, and this is amazing that they actually agree on a date, because usually they don't agree. Even the Battle of Uhud is debated, even the Battle of, so many battles are debated. The Battle of Khandaq is a huge debate when it took place. The Battle of Dhat al-Riqa, all of these battles is a huge debate. For some reason, this battle is pretty much unanimously agreed. The Prophet ﷺ left Medina on the 1st of Dhul Qa'dah in the 6th year of the Hijrah.
The day that it happened, yeah, you'd like to know the date, sure. But it did happen. So I think as long as you can remember, hold on. As long as you can remember that the battle did happen, and you remember, okay, well, this happened, there was a fighting over here, and then this happened over here. Uh-oh, I'm facing. I don't understand why the camera has to do this. It glitches in and out like that. But as long as you can remember, okay, the battle happened, this happened here, and then this happened there, that's more important to me. Since we're going to talk about the battle, it's important to remember what happened in the battle. Now, we will never know 100% of what happened, but we can get the general idea from what we read and what is said. The date, I don't think that's as important, but it would be nice to know the whole thing. So with people fighting over the date, I guess I don't care about that as much. I'm going to bring it back to the American Revolutionary War. Just go with me. I couldn't tell you when the Battle of Yorktown, which is that was the final battle of the American Revolutionary War. That was when Washington and Lafayette had General Cornwallis pretty much surrounded, and he was too sick, supposedly, to come out and surrender. So his second command came out and surrendered. Oddly enough, the second command, I don't remember his name, but he surrendered to Washington and then went back home and went over to some battle and fought Napoleon and lost and surrendered to him as well. So he's the only person to surrender to Napoleon and Washington, whoever that guy was. Congratulations to him, But I couldn't tell you when that battle happened. I couldn't tell you when the surrender happened. I know the surrender happened. So that date to me isn't as important as the event, if that makes sense.
So this is pretty much unanimously agreed. In fact, I don't know of any difference of opinion amongst all of the classical scholars of Seerah that the Prophet ﷺ left Medina on the 1st of Dhul Qa'dah, and he had made the announcement to the Ansar, to the Muhajirun, to the surrounding tribes that he would be performing the Umrah. Now we can imagine the Sahaba have not seen Mecca for 6 years. And the excitement would have been so high, as well the anticipation, as well the nervousness, what's going to happen. And when the news reached the Muhajirun and Ansar, they immediately prepared. It's going to be at least a month and a half to go do Umrah and come back, and Allah knows what's going to happen. They're preparing. As for the Bedouins, as for the A'rab around Medina, they refused to participate. And the Quran references this, and also books of Seerah and Tafsir reference it, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah Al-Fatih that those who remained behind from the A'rab, from the Bedouins, they said, شَغَلَتْنَا أَمْوَالُنَا وَأَهْلُونَا فَاسْتَغْفِرْ لَنَا. They gave an excuse to the Prophet and they said, our properties, our money and our families, they prevented us. So ask Allah to forgive us, we're not able to go. شَغَلَتْنَا أَمْوَالُنَا وَأَهْلُونَا فَاسْتَغْفِرْ لَنَا. Then Allah exposed them. يَقُولُونَ بِأَلْسِنَتِهِمْ مَا لَيْسَ فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ. They say with their tongues what is not in their hearts. And Allah Azza wa Jal tells us, this is in Surah Al-Fatih verses 10 onwards, what was their real excuse. بَلْ ظَنَنْتُمْ أَلَّنْ يَنْقَلِبَ الرَّسُولُ وَالْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِلَى أَهْلِهِمْ أَبَدًا وَزُيِّنَ ذَلِكَ فِي قُلُوبِكُمْ وَظَنَنْتُمْ ظَنَّ السَّوْءِ وَكُنْتُمْ قَوْمًا بُورًا. You thought that the Prophet ﷺ and the believers will never return back alive. And you thought the worst thoughts of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you were a wretched people. That your opinion of Allah is so cheap, and so that as if the Prophet ﷺ is going to die, the Sahaba are going to die, so you made an excuse. And Allah exposed their excuse in the Quran. And we have also in the books, some of the books of tafsir, that these Arab, these Bedouins, they said that this man, meaning the Prophet ﷺ, wants us to go to the very nation that came here to kill us. The Battle of Badr, the Battle of Uhud, they came here to kill us. Surely this is not going to happen. We will not go marching to our deaths. Let us make an excuse and just tell him something else. And this is exactly what they did. They invented an excuse, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exposed them. And subhanallah, they
Almost started to talk. Forgot the microphone was muted. Alrighty. Let's pretend that didn't happen. That's between you and me. I wonder if anyone... I wonder what would have been, I know no one did, but I wonder what would have been said if somebody just came forward and said, listen, I don't want to go because honestly, I think you're going to lose. And I just don't want to be a part of that. You know, I'm going to go, I want to play some video games. My wife just brought me a PlayStation 2 and I just want to play video games. And I wonder what the answer would have been. What's a PlayStation 2? You don't even have a TV. That's what Muhammad would have said. You don't even have a TV. The guy would have been like, you need a TV to play? My bad. I didn't really. Okay, I'll go with you, I guess. I got nothing else to do.
their excuse and their laziness and their fear prevented them from upgrading themselves to have the highest honor after the Battle of Badr. As we will come to later on, the Sahaba are not one level. The Sahaba have ranks. And the highest ranks, well, we can say the highest rank is Ashara Mubashara. These are the 10. The second highest are Badr. And the third highest are Hudaybiyyah, Bay'at al-Ridwan. Right? And we see here a causal relationship. Those who were brave to go, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed them with such an immense blessing that the Prophet said to them, when he gave them Bay'at al-Ridwan, he said, no one on earth is more pious and righteous than this group in front of me now. That the Prophet praised them in this manner. And that is why anybody who was present in Bay'at al-Ridwan, he gets an automatic upgrade from the Sahaba that's really second only to Badr. So Badr is the highest, al-Badri. And then the one who participated in Bay'at al-Ridwan. And as for these people, the A'rab, because they were hesitant, so they deprived themselves of the blessing of Allah. And of course, this is a well-known principle of Islam. The more tawakkul you have in Allah, the more Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bless you. In the end,
stupid question. If any one of you who's watching is alive back when Muhammad first starts preaching, and you are accustomed to a lifetime of idol worshiping, or you understand what I'm saying. Would any of you so easily turn away from what you know to what this man is preaching? Granted, you know his history as a very, this is from what I remember. Muhammad was a very honest man. Uh-oh, I'm phasing. Okay, I'm back on earth. He was a very honest man. People came to him to broker negotiations. So obviously that means something. He's not a liar. He was not a farmer. He was a goat herder. Am I remembering that correctly? I think that's right. You'll tell me if I'm wrong. But I know that he was looked at as somebody who had he couldn't read or write, but he was looked at as somebody who was very, I almost said high value. That's not the word I'm thinking of. High character. He wasn't somebody who lied. He was very honest in how he treated people, very fair. So I'm just asking you because I will then give my opinion on this. If you have grown up in this idol worshiping, and now this guy is preaching, there's one God and he's Allah, and I'm back. How easy would it have been for you to listen to him and then to change and I'll say convert, but revert, I guess. How easy would it have been for you to do that? Now, I ask because if I'm in that situation, judging by what he was saying about those guys who didn't want to go to the war because they thought he would die, if I'm in that situation, dog hair, and I know nothing but idol worship, and I'm in this situation where this guy's telling me, put all your faith in one God that's above all of these. So, Yorkie 1, Labrador 0, apparently. Are we done? Thank you. I'm trying to talk here. Shut your faces. Back to what I was saying. I apologize. I don't know if I could so easily. Hey, can you stop? Thanks. I don't know if I could so easily change. Or, you know what I mean? I don't know. I simply speaking, I wonder if I would be one of those people who's looking at it saying, this guy's going to die. But by then he was a little more than just Muhammad, the guy who sees visions. He was the prophet Muhammad by then, right? So maybe my opinion would be different. But when it all happened, I don't know if I could be so easy to just go along with him. And I understand faith. You got to have faith for faith. You got to have faith for faith. What the hell? Now I throw hell in that. Bad choice of words, Kris. All right, let me try this again. You have to have faith in the next life. So you have to have faith in what this person's saying. And I don't know if I would have so easily done that when it all happens. Now, maybe when time goes on, I might look at everybody and think, wow, I know, Joe, Dale, Tim Islam. That especially was weird because that was his last name, Tim Islam. I'd be like, wow. Maybe there's something to it. But I don't know if I could have converted so quickly or, just had that faith. I apologize for pausing for this long question, but this is just something that I'm just curious. If you're in that time and when he first starts preaching, would you have so easily, I want to say converted, but I understand it's reverted, but could you have went against everybody and everything that you know to have changed? Now we could say hindsight 2020, but put yourself in that situation. I'm just curious because I don't know if I could have. I know I couldn't have. It's a difficult question. It's a tough one.
And the books of...
It's a tough one for me. you're probably saying, nope, easy. I would have done it.
Seerah mentioned, Bukhari and others mentioned 1,400 companions left Medina for Mecca. Now notice here, every single battle or every single ghazwa, the numbers are increasing. What does this show us? More and more Muslims are embracing Islam, right? Badr is 300 something. Then Uhud gets up to 700 something, right? Then Khandaq,
Badr, as in the battle, B-A-D-R, there was only 300 Muslims? Am I understanding that correctly? I swear there was more. Okay.
Estimated maybe there was like 1,000 or something men, right? So slowly but surely we see. Now unfortunately the books of Seerah, they don't fill in all the details, but we can extrapolate. The very fact that 1,400 men are going out for the Umrah clearly shows that now the Muslims, mashallah, tabarakallah, are numbering in the thousands now. Alhamdulillah, the tide is turning even in terms of quantity. So 1,400 of the Sahaba, they left Medina for Mecca, and there are a number of reports. Now here the books of Seerah differ. This is the big controversy. Were they armed for battle or were they not armed for battle? There seems to be both opinions found in the early books of Seerah. Some books mention that they were only wearing the fighting swords. The swords that, so they had different types of swords. There's a sword that you use for animals and just to protection. Then you have, sorry, not fighting swords, defense swords, excuse me. Then you have fighting swords, and that is the sharper sword that is used for actual battle. You have the fighting gear, you have the helmets, you have the armor. Now, scholars have differed, or early reports have differed. Did they have the armor and weapons or not? Some books mention they did, some books mention they didn't. And one way to combine these two, and this seems to be the position that inshallah is the correct one, one way to combine these two is that they were not wearing these weapons and armor, but they had them in case they needed them. They had them in separate caravans or in separate, the camels are carrying all of it, but they are not wearing it. Now obviously they are not wearing it for another reason, and that is because they're in ihram. And when you're in ihram, you really cannot wear weapons. You're not allowed to wear, these types of things. So in the state of ihram, it is difficult and it is not feasible to wear these types of things. So Allah knows best. Those people who said they weren't armed, they're saying they weren't wearing the arms. And those who said they had arms means they had them in the caravan if they needed them. And this in fact makes sense because the Prophet ﷺ would not just walk in blindly not knowing what is going to happen. His whole seerah shows us that he took every reasonable precaution. Now, another interesting thing is that the Prophet ﷺ left Mecca on the 1st of Dhul Qa'dah. And this is an interesting point here, the 1st of Dhul Qa'dah. What is so interesting about the 1st of Dhul Qa'dah? Because Ashhurul Hurum, or the sacred months, they start from the 1st of Dhul Qa'dah. You all know the sacred months by now. What are the sacred months? Where's Ramadan? MashaAllah. Okay, good. Trick question. Okay. There is no. Ramadan is not of the sacred months. There are 4 sacred months, right? منها أربعة حرم إن عدة الشهور عند الله 12 شهرا في كتاب الله يوم خلق السماوات والأرض منها أربعة حرم. Surah At-Tawbah. There are 12 months of the year. This was what Allah had decreed the day He created the heavens and the earth. Out of those 12 months, 4 of them are sacred. أربعة حرم.
Okay, back to the video.
And this was the religion of Ibrahim. And so the Arabs of Jahiliyyah had adopted that, but they made a big mistake, or not a big mistake, they made a big treason for these months. What did they do? They mixed and matched. They changed them around. They would, if they wanted to go to war, they would say, okay, let's pause Ashhur al-Hurum. Instead of calling this Dhul Qa'dah, let's call this Shawwal. We'll delay Dhul Qa'dah to the next month. Right? So they kept on swapping back and forth. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, this type of swapping back and forth, إِنَّمَا النَّسِيءُ زِيَادَةٌ فِي الْكُفْرِ. This is the essence of blasphemy. You're playing with the law of Allah. And then, just as a footnote, a tangent here. So when the Prophet did Hajjatul Wada', it so happened that the restructuring of the year made it back to the original 12 order. And so the Prophet said that in this year, the 12 months have reverted to the original order that the cycle was when Allah created the heavens and the earth. So let there be no more swapping around, right? Because you see, after so much swapping, there was confusion now. What month is what? Can you imagine for centuries they're swapping back and forth? So the people were then confused. So it's just a yearly. And by the way, there's one of the years they couldn't have, one of the reasons they could not have a calendar. So from that year of Hajjatul Wada' up until our times, the ashhur have been set in stone the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intended. So what are the sacred months? Dhul Qa'dah, Dhul Hijjah, Muharram, back to back, and then Shawwal, Sha'ban, Rajab, okay? Memorize this. This is basic stuff. Dhul Qa'dah, Dhul Hijjah, Muharram, and then Rajab. These are the 4 sacred months. Now, the Prophet ﷺ left Mecca on the very beginning of the sacred month. So literally he is delaying his departure until the Ashhurul Hurum begins. And this is clearly intended. It's not a coincidence, right? Whenever he saw the dream, we don't know. But he's waiting for the first of Dhul Qa'dah, and literally, and it happened to be a Monday, the first of Dhul Qa'dah, the Prophet ﷺ leaves Medina. Why? Because he wants to send the clearest message possible to the Quraysh that I have no desire for war. I have no desire for war. I'm leaving peacefully, I'm wearing ihram, and I'm going peacefully to Mecca. Now, of course we understand, or if we don't, then I'll clarify here. This was a huge gamble or risk. And obviously the Prophet was putting his trust in Allah when he's doing this risk, but it is a risk. Why is it a risk? Well, technically, the Quraysh are supposed to allow everybody to come to Mecca in the sacred months. Ibn Abbas himself says that in the sacred months and in the haram, the one whose father was murdered would see his father's murderer doing tawaf, but he would not touch him. This was the law of Jahiliyyah, the law of Ibrahim obviously, that the law of Jahiliyyah that the Quraysh prided themselves on. That once the Ashhurul Hurum is announced and the people of Mecca know, and the people of Arabia know it is now the sacred months, so there should not be any fighting. And remember we talked about the incident right before the battle of Badr when the Sahaba, they had the little bit of a expedition outside of Mecca, and they killed one person on the first day of the sacred months. What happens? The people of Mecca, the Quraysh, raised a huge hue and cry. They kill in Ashhurul Hurum, right? And يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الشَّهْرِ الْحَرَامِ قِتَالٍ فِيهِ.
I ran a little bit long, but I'm going to end it here. We'll go back. I think I did that last time. I feel like I've done this video before because he's talking about the sacred months. But I have to end it here because the dogs are really wanting to go outside. So, this is going to be a short outro. We will be back with part 2. But until then, have a good day, have a good night.